Welcome to the Animation Career Community Podcast, where we answer your questions on how to grow, maintain, and transform your animation career at every stage. I'm your co-host, John.
And I'm your co-host, Kathy.
Today's guest is Jeff Dickson, a veteran of the animation industry who worked on features such as Disney's Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and The Lion King. From layout to story art and workbooking, painting, Jeff's story continues. Hang on to your seats. This is a good one. Hi, Jeff. How are you? Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me, John. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, it's quite amazing. I'm very honored, and it's such a big pleasure to have Jeff join us on the podcast. I met Jeff years ago. I think we briefly talked about it. We met during an interview I had at Core Digital about some workbooking, as a matter of fact. But we have worked together. We worked together on, I believe it was Nut Job 3 and Nut Job 2 at Toonbox Animation. Quite a number of years ago now, I guess.
Yeah, a few years back. Yeah, back in the days when there actually was a Nut Job 3.
Let's start from the very beginning, Jeff. Maybe you could just tell us how you got your interest in animation and cartoons. Like, for most people, like for myself, I could easily say, as a kid, I watched too many cartoons on TV, and that's how. For me, and probably for a lot of our listeners and a lot of artists, that's probably how it started. But let's hear how Jeff started. Like, where did your interest come from?
I wish I could offer you a more unique pathway. It's basically the same thing. I grew up watching. It was mostly Warner Brothers that got me seriously interested. Every Saturday afternoon it was the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner hour. And I'd watch those Looney Tunes endlessly over and over, you know. And it was Saturday mornings watching Johnny Quest and stuff like that. That just kind of, and of course, back in those days, every kid would do this, not just me, but every kid would go home at lunchtime and watch the Flintstones, right?
Yep, the Flintstones, or at the time it was also Battle of the Planets. I think.
But when I was young, I was so naive about it all. I didn't realize that those Warner Brothers cartoons were already then decades old. I thought, I'm going to go work for these guys someday. I really love to.
Right.
But to be honest, that's not actually where it started. That's where the interest came. But the actual prospect of actually seriously considering it came up when I was walking home from high school one day with a couple buddies, and we were talking about careers. And one of my buddies said, what would be really cool would be to go down to the States and work for Disney. Mm-hmm. And I thought, all right.
Wow. And that just kind of came out of the blue? Like, were your friends also interested in animation or cartoons? Or?
Well, I didn't think so. They didn't really show any interest other than that. But maybe privately they were. But I didn't grow up being a Disney fan necessarily. Mm-hmm. I mean, I liked some of the movies. I liked Peter Pan and Bambi and so on. But I didn't really gravitate toward Mickey Mouse and Goofy, those characters. I just thought they kind of paled in comparison to the Warner Brothers. And I can say that now because I'm not going to get fired.
I agree, though.
Anyway, it's but I and then when I found out that Sheridan had its animation program and it was well respected and local, I thought, I should really try this because I don't know what else I really feel interested enough to spend the money to go and learn. My parents were really supportive. They said, well, we'd like you to go to university, but if you'd rather do this, then that's fine. So before I did, though, I went to, decided to work for a year so I could put myself through college.
Oh, amazing.
So I got a job at the stock exchange downtown Toronto.
You know what? You've told me this story. I completely forgot.
Yeah. So I got the job. There were like 50 applicants for the job, and I got it because I wrote neatly on the application. That's the only reason. And so anyway, I got on the trading floor of the stock exchange for about a year. Actually considered becoming a stockbroker for a time. And then I found out that all these stockbrokers, they're all alcoholics. Broken marriages, kids in jail. These are really damaged human beings.
Right.
And I think I can safely say that because I doubt any of them will ever hear this. But and there was one guy there that I thought really had a good head on his shoulders. But it ended up, I found out that after work he'd go to the bar and get drunk and start fights with people. So I thought, you know what, this is not the world I want to be in.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's stick with the original plan. Collect the, save the money, go to Sheridan, and this might be a bit of a wake up call to some kids nowadays that are going to Sheridan. But back then, this is in 80. I hate to say it, the early 1980s. I had to ask them to please look at my portfolio and let me know if I could handle the program, because they were just like, "Come on in, give us your money, you're in."
Right. Yeah.
And
I don't think that changed too much, but
really, I thought they had like 1,200 applicants a year now.
they do. Yeah.
I'm surprised. Was it not a popular program at the time? Were they not getting?
I don't know what was going on. All I know was that they were just eager to get my money and have somebody sign up. So, and I thought that seems odd for a program that's supposed to have all this reputation,
But I think when you look at it too, like in that era, because when I went to Sheridan, which would have been late 80s, the demographic, like in terms of the workforce being built up for animation, still wasn't very big. Like, yes, there were a lot of people interested, but it certainly didn't experience the boom that we kind of saw kind of late early 2000s and even up to the mid 2010s. That's when it really kind of skyrocketed, I think.
Right.
Yeah. So I think even though it was a well-known program, and it was still one of the few schools during that time. So obviously there were still people clamoring to get in, but I think the overall number of people trying to get in were still kind of on the low side, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we had overall, though, we did have, I think it was 100 and close to 120 students in that year.
Mm-hmm.
They had to break it up into 4 classes. At that point, it was pretty early on during the process, maybe the first 6 months or so, and they were asking people what specifically they wanted to do in the industry, and everybody was saying animator, animator, animator.
Right.
And I thought, that's a lot of competition.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said, I think I'd be more interested in being a layout artist. And I think it was one of the smartest decisions I ever made, because I don't think I was a great animator, but I loved the meat and potatoes of film structure, the composing of the shots, the camera angles, the cutting, and all of that kind of thing. I really, really took an interest in that aspect of it.
Actually, sorry, go ahead, Kathy. No, it's okay. Go ahead, Kathy.
I'm just curious because a lot of people who are applying for Sheridan now have to spend a lot of prep time getting skills to like compete now to get into school. I'm curious how much drawing and art skills you had when you applied. Did you go?
Very little.
Oh, really? So are you doing it on your own? Like,
I was just doing it on my own. Yeah. I mean, I took a film arts class in high school, but I ended up doing my project ended up being a cutout animation thing. So I didn't even do a lot of drawing in that. And we never really studied film composition and visual language in that course either. It was very, very basic. So yeah, I just did this stuff on my own, and I had previously applied to OCA, didn't get in there, and was grateful down the road that I didn't, because that was the wrong path for me. Yeah,
it was kind of two choices if you were living in Ontario. Like it was Sheridan or OCAD. I remember
pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much it.
Yeah, that's about it.
And OCA was a bit more of I think they consider more technical animation.
And did you feel like the other students in your year were also coming from a similar level?
Are you talking to me?
Like to you, Jeff? Yeah.
I think so. I think a lot of people that I knew, they had just drawn on their own, and that's why I approached the college and said, please look at my portfolio. I got turned down at OCA, and I want to know if I can handle this. And but I think a lot of people were in the same shoes. It was a good crop of students that year. A lot of them are still in the industry, some of them, and are directors now or whatever. we did a group film in, what was that, second year, I guess, was the group film back then. Our group produced the longest animated student film they'd ever had at the time. It was like 7 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a lot of work. We didn't actually finish it until third year. But it was probably because of that I didn't even finish my third year project. But I still managed to graduate, though. After that, there was couldn't get a job anywhere, so I had to freelance. I was freelancing in the old audiovisual industry, which was an industry that was built on multiple slide projectors, all timed with computer.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a show, kind of a film. It was like, something between film and just stills. So I was doing art for that for a while. And then I walked, some of my friends were working at Nelvana at the time, and they were working on Ewoks and droids for Lucasfilm. And so I went in and I got a layout test. And I didn't even actually finish the test. I brought it in halfway done and said, "Am I doing the right thing?" And the guy said, "Yeah, you're fine. Start Monday."
Oh, wow.
Okay, great. No argument there. So, I started out on Ewoks, and I tell you, it was the funnest time. It was the crew were a bunch of characters, interesting characters. Yeah. And there was a lot of antics and craziness going on. And in between that, I thought I applauded myself. I'm working on Star Wars.
Yeah.
Sort of. And had the greatest time.
And is that where you eventually got into Disney then? Like, did you leave Nelvana, kind of the TV
No, I was
production?
still at Nelvana.
Okay.
I was working on, I think it was Beetlejuice. And now this is an interesting story, and it's going to make some of your listeners probably cringe at how this went down, because how I got into Disney was entirely unique and will never happen again. So it's not going to help out anybody, but nevertheless, so the 1980, let's see, now this would be 1989. Disney took out an ad in the Globe and Mail across Canada, a page size ad saying, "We are looking for artists to join our animation studio." And I saw that and I thought, oh, that's weird. I thought you'd have to be an American to get a job there.
Right.
I thought, this is never going to come up again. I can't ignore this.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent 3 weeks working on a portfolio, and I sent it down. And from what I understood from that ad across all of Canada, they had 60 applicants. Of those 60 applicants,
Wow.
they offered jobs to 13. Of those 13, 2 accepted.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
Yeah.
What a strange time.
Yeah.
What an amazing time too.
I know. I mean, that was just, it was just, I don't know what it was. The universe was just smiling on me at that point.
Yeah.
And it's, so yeah, I was one of the 2. And this is, I shouldn't really admit to this because this is embarrassing and people are going, "What are you, an idiot?" And yes, I'm an idiot. But now I've started, I can't stop. So they wanted me to come down to LA, I think in early 1990, January or something like that. And I said, well, I had a ski trip planned and paid for in Austria for February. And I wasn't going to tell them that. So I said, "Is there any way we can delay this till March? I'm kind of busy on something now." And they go, "Well, we're not happy about it, but okay, we understand." I'm like, okay. So I went to Europe on my ski trip. There's no snow that year on the slopes. So I took a day trip we were in Innsbruck, and I took a day trip to Venice. And so
Wow.
we had to get up at like 4 or 5 in the morning and get on this bus. And so we're driving through northern Italy on this bus, and sun's barely even coming up, and there's these two girls sitting behind me chatting about LA. And so I kind of interjected and said, "Excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'm going to be moving to LA in a month or two. Can you tell me something about it? What's it like there?" And so on. So we chatted for a bit, and they said, "Well, what are you going to do there?" I said, "Well, I'm going down. I'm going to be working for Disney." And one of them says, "Oh, I got a friend who works at Disney. She knew the guy that I had told that I couldn't make it by their deadline. I had to come later." And she goes, "I'll have to tell him I ran into you." I'm thinking, my God, what?
What have I done?
Yeah.
There's like what, 6 billion people on the planet? And I run into probably the only person in Europe that knows this one guy, the one person that I did not want to know that I
Yeah.
was in Europe.
But animation, the industry is like that. Like,
Yeah.
I've had similar weird instances where I've been on holiday in like a tiny town in Italy and run into a coworker randomly.
Mm.
Like it does feel like we're all sort of connected across these weird
But you know what?
lines.
She wasn't even in animation.
I know, but it
Yeah.
just still
But
She
feels
just
like
happened to
part
know
of
the
it.
guy.
Yeah.
it's like the six, what is it? The six
Si-
separations of Kevin
Oh,
Bacon
it
there.
was
Yeah.
freaky. And
Yeah.
so anyway, and the weird thing is when I finally did get down there, you go through orientation,
Right.
and there's a guy who's in charge of welcoming all new employees, and there were four of us starting on that particular day, and we're all lined up and we're introducing ourselves to him, and he gets to me and I introduce myself, and he goes, "Jeff Dickson, I've heard about you." And then he moves on, and I'm thinking, what does that mean? What does that mean?
So did they ever find out? Were you ever
I have
found
no
out?
idea. I have no idea. I ran into that guy many years later, and I asked him, "So why did you say that?" And he didn't remember the incident.
Right.
But yeah, that was
Oh my
anyway.
gosh. That's
So
hilarious.
I ended up there anyway. That was that's the main thing. I still managed to get hired.
So having ended up at Disney then, I mean, as we mentioned in your intro, you worked on all these amazing films, which a lot of us have kind of grown up with, or like for myself, I was already in the industry more or less at the time of some of the films you've worked on. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience on those films? Like, and maybe you could just explain to our younger audience members too, how, working on features of that production level can differ than your experiences on, let's say, the TV production you worked on previously at Nelvana.
It's a lot more terrifying.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I can second this
Yeah.
opinion as well. That's my experience as well.
Yeah. That's mostly what I remember is fear. Uh, it's yeah, it was daunting. Um, so when I got there, it was also very strange. Like it hadn't been strange already, but when I got there, this is in Los Angeles, and so I'm going to the main Disney lot, and I'm told that I'm going to be working on a new production. They're starting up, Beauty and the Beast. And so I go to the place they tell me, and there's no one there. I look around, where is
Okay.
everybody? And then this art director shows up and one other artist. And it turns out that it was just the three of us working on Beauty and the Beast.
Whoa.
And I'm thinking, how did I end up here? I mean, I'm doing development on a feature. That doesn't make sense. I was hired as an assistant layout artist,
Right.
and I expected to be working with a mentor or something like that. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden I'm just thrown into being a development guy on this new feature.
Wow.
Was
And
this because they were crewing? Like I remember there was like a huge demand at that time. Uh, was it because they were having a hard time finding people?
well, that's the only reason I can think of that I got hired is because they were having trouble finding people, you know, um,
Mhm.
which is odd because they still had Cal Arts. I mean, how many
Yeah.
But anyway, it was also, they were trying to finish up Rescuers Down Under at that point.
Mm,
And they also had a secondary production, a Mickey Mouse featurette, Prince and the Pauper, going on.
right.
And the whole crew had been moved off the main lot into another studio in Glendale. And so that's why there was nobody around. So after about 2 weeks, they decided that to move us, to postpone the Beauty and the Beast thing and just move us over to help out on the other shows. So I ended up being on Prince and the Pauper to help with that. And then, but overall, I think I've been so very, very fortunate in my career. And I can only ascribe it to just good luck, because it was just around when I got to Disney, it was just around the time that they were hitting that new wave,
Yep.
that started really with Little Mermaid.
Mm-hmm.
Because the studio, they almost shut down animation entirely, like gave up on it.
Yeah.
And the only thing that saved them was Roy Disney going to Michael Eisner and saying, you know what, the animation studio is halfway through Great Mouse Detective. Let them finish it, because otherwise we'll have wasted all that money. And so Eisner said, yeah, all right. And then it started and then Mouse Detective made a bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess Roy just pressuring Michael Eisner constantly saved the studio. And so anyway, so when I came in, this new wave was hitting, and I just got lucky. I mean, working there, I'll tell you, although politics are everywhere in this business, you can't really avoid it in any studio, I think.
Yeah.
The politics in the LA studio was 10 times worse than, at least in the department I was in layout, was 10 times worse than anywhere else I've ever seen. The department was divided into two camps that just hated each other. And I wanted nothing to do with either one. I just wanted to survive.
Yeah, that actually really, it sounds like my experience too. Like,
Yeah.
we tried to avoid that politics, but it was like, well, I mean, the studio I worked at got shut down in California, so the politics was really intense. But we just, we tried to stay out of that stuff on the
You
artist
try
side.
to, as
Yeah,
much as you can.
yeah,
Keep your head down, smile at everybody.
yeah.
And but it's such a high stakes environment that the politics just get more ratcheted up than I think, even in more so than I ever saw in any studio here in Toronto.
Yeah, going back to like the question, John, about like differences between television and film, that was something I noticed, and that sort of sounds like what you're saying, Jeff, is like the stakes were so high because the
Mm-hmm.
budgets were so big, or there was so much more
Mm-hmm.
riding on the projects, that
Right.
the intensity of decision making was like way more intense than a lot of the studios I've worked at here. But not that there isn't that here; it does exist here too, just different.
It absolutely does. Like I say, I think in any studio you're going to find that. People have their own personal ambitions, and they're not going to let anything get in the way. And those ambitions might be a position in the studio, or it might be artistic. Um, but yeah, I think it's just unavoidable. And of course, once you add artists and their temperaments into the mix, it gets even more.
That's a very polite way to say that.
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole nother tangent. But to get back to your original question, so I don't get too off track, and thank you for bringing this up again, Kathy, the differences between television and feature work. I mean, television is a high turnover rate as far as the work that's passing in front of you on your desk.
Right. Yeah.
It's a little bit more. I want to say relaxed, but it's a bit of a slower pace with the feature stuff, because you're spending more time crafting and testing and that kind of thing. And there's not as much reuse of backgrounds and that kind of thing. So But it's also the scrutiny is much more intense. You know,
Yeah.
your drawing has to be much. You can't allow. There's no margin for error. You know,
Right.
and you're dealing with people who are really good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then there's the whole imposter syndrome thing that comes up, and we can talk about that as well. But I'd like to leave that till later if we have time. But yeah, just the work itself. But it was invigorating at the same time. You know, you're forced to really reach down into yourself and pull out the very best.
Yeah.
And you have to be very professional about it all. And it was it was a little bit of a wake up call, but it was one I was expecting. I knew what I was going into. It wasn't going to be like Nelvana, where everybody's like cracking jokes and pulling pranks on each other all the time. I've heard Nelvana wasn't really like that toward the end. In the beginning, it was. Yeah. It was insane.
Yeah. When I started Nelvana, it was exactly what you're describing. A lot more. Not that people didn't work. People worked very hard.
For sure. Oh, yeah.
And because you had to crank a lot of stuff
you
out.
Did.
It was not like that when I was there. I was there when they were part of Chorus, and it was very corporate. Like it.
Yeah.
Very, very different than that. Yeah.
I think, my experience with some feature work as well, kind of exactly as you describe it, Jeff, you really do have to dig down. You're forced to take time to criticize your own work and keep iterating on your work and keep finessing it to get it to the right stage at a minimum level of quality, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was fortunate. Sorry, Kathy, please go ahead.
Well, I was curious about your experience working on those projects, like Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast, and like what it felt like at the time. Did it feel like, oh, we're crafting like these classics?
No.
Or did it? No, it just felt like another project. We weren't sure whether it'd be successful or not.
Nobody had any clue at all. When after Aladdin, the crew was going to be divided into two crews. One was to handle Pocahontas, one was to handle The Lion King. And all the top animators, artists, art directors, so on, they all wanted to be on Pocahontas because they said that's the one that's going to be the big hit because everybody knows Pocahontas.
Right.
Lion King is an unknown entity. It doesn't exist anywhere. American kids grew up in school. They all know Pocahontas and the stories, right? So, and little did they know that this Lion King, this little secondary production, was going to be the biggest hit they'd had since God knows when.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it had an impact on me. I know you don't want me to make you feel a little older, but I love The Lion King. It inspired me to get into the industry. So.
I'll be honest, to this day, I have a hard time listening to the Lion King soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
Because it brings up so many emotions and memories. Somewhat bittersweet, but only bitter in that they're gone forever. But it's so it hits me so hard that it almost brings tears to my eyes. It was such an incredible experience.
Yeah, that sounds really positive, at least.
Yeah.
Because when you started talking about not being able to listen to it, I can think of productions that I can't watch those shows for.
No, it was nothing like that. No, it's the exact opposite. It was because it was so incredible that I don't know, the feelings it evokes are just, the music is so powerful, that, oh God, what's the theme called?
The Elton John one, right? The main one?
Yeah.
You're talking about the opening?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
When they're looking out over the plains.
The Circle of Life one, that one?
Is that Circle of Life or is it called something else?
I can't remember.
See, it's been so long now that I've listened to it, I've kind of forgotten.
I'm terrible with Disney soundtracks.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So, so when Beauty and the Beast hit the Oscars, I can tell you another funny story about that. I don't know how I ever managed to not get hired and B, not get fired. So Beauty and the Beast got nominated for an Oscar, And
Hmm.
so there was a party Disney held on Oscar night, and it was in Hollywood. And so we drive to um, the location, and Hollywood's kind of a dump, you know, and it didn't look very nice at all. And so I'm pulling into the parking lot, and I get out of the car, and I said, you'd think a company that made like $800 billion last year would be able to afford a wrap party in a better place than this. And I look over, and not 3 feet away is Roy Disney
Right.
sitting in his car with the window rolled down.
He's probably thinking the same thing. Come
It
on.
could be, yeah.
He's just slowly cruising by. What is this? I swear, if I robbed a bank, it would be on a police parade day.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, and I think we realized at that point there was a feeling in the studio, though, that with Little Mermaid's success and now Beauty and the Beast's huge success, that we were onto something. Like there was a momentum gathering, and people were
Hmm.
excited. What's the next Disney movie to come out? And so when we got onto Aladdin, I was fortunate to have a supervisor who was willing to give me a chance to um, grow a little bit
Hmm.
and move from just being an assistant layout artist to actually trying workbooking for the first
Right.
time. So I'd like to pause here and ask you guys a question, because it's something I've never
Sure.
really been able to pin down. Now, workbooking is a concept that they came up with at Disney, I think on Fox and the Hound, but I don't know if it was ever a concept that was ever done anywhere else at other studios. Does anyone know what workbooking is
I was
unless you worked at
gonna,
Disney?
yeah, I was gonna ask. That was gonna be my next question. Could you
Yeah.
explain what workbooking is?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, well, let me do it for those who don't
Sure, yeah.
know.
sure. Yeah.
So, one thing at Disney, the storyboards, this is not a criticism of the storyboard artists. They're cranking this stuff out, but they're mostly ex animators, and they don't put a lot of thought into the setup
Mhm.
and at least the ones that I guess maybe back on Fox and the Hound. I'm not really sure. I wasn't there then, but they didn't put enough into it to satisfy the layout artists that those concerns were being addressed. So they came up with this idea that, well, why don't we have some layout artists go in and go over the storyboards, redraw them if necessary, and put all of that cinematic thinking in there, the visual language, the composition, the camera angles, and how do we tell the story or best support the story that's being told with camera angles, um, lighting, cutting, framing, all of these visual tools. Those aren't being thought of, and you can kind of see that in some of the earlier films,
Hmm.
like Robin Hood and so on. They're not that strong from a compositional sense.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
I imagine that's changed over the
well, it has
years.
over the years.
Yeah.
I mean, since they started workbooking and we were able to start doing that thing, and Leia, that sort of thing, and Leia would have its input.
Yeah.
And they would go in and they would literally, they wouldn't always change the boards, because sometimes the boards are pretty damn good, but if they felt the need to, they would change the camera angle, or they'd merge two shots, or they'd separate
Hmm.
a shot into two, or they'd add a camera move, or um, some such thing. And it made the movies more and more cinematic.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that um, it helped make Beauty and the Beast and some of those other films in the new wave stronger for it. So I finally got a chance to do some of that on Aladdin, and looking back on those workbooks now, they're pretty crude. I wouldn't show them to anybody, but
No, they look great. I remember you brought them in that one day when we were at Toonbox, and I was looking at them because I had always, I was always
the
enamored
Aladdin
by.
ones,
No, I think you had some of the was it
probably Mulan.
Mulan, and I think you had some of the stuff from Brother Bear.
Okay. Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
later stuff that
Yeah.
I started to learn more about what I was doing at that point. And
Right.
yeah, but my early stuff was pretty crude. And
Mm.
but I managed to keep on doing it. And so after Aladdin, I decided I didn't want to be in LA anymore. I
Hmm.
didn't like the politics. I didn't like the city. And I really didn't like the prospect of being there with earthquakes
Mm.
constantly
Right.
rocking the city. So I quit and I
Mm.
said, I'm sorry, I'm going back to Canada. And I had just signed a new contract like the week before.
Oh
Oh,
wow.
wow.
Yeah, I signed a 2 year contract and they said, and then I went in later and said, I'm going back to my country. And for what I understand, because I'm a foreigner, you can't stop me, contract notwithstanding.
Mm.
So
Would they have tried?
they didn't. They said, if you don't
Okay.
want to be here, we don't want you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
You know, that's their attitude. And
yeah.
but
Right.
they actually that's not quite that's a little harsh. They actually did want me because they said, well, instead of quitting, would you consider moving to Florida? We have a studio in Orlando.
Mm.
And I was kind of hoping they would come up with that.
Okay.
Really want to leave Disney. So I said, yeah, I'll go to Florida. And so I went there for Lion King. And uh, again, I think it was one of the best moves I ever made because it was a very, very different atmosphere in Florida.
Right.
They were like this little side studio that was trying to prove itself, and everybody was kind of like all on the same team. You
Hmm.
know, if there were any politics, it was like the others. The enemy was L.A. We
Oh,
got to
oh
prove to
dear.
L.A. that
Right. Yeah.
we can hold our own. So it was kind of fun to be a part of that, and there were great people there, and
How long were you in Florida for?
I was in Florida for was it about 12 years.
Oh wow. Okay, so quite a while
That's
then.
quite a long
Yeah,
time.
yeah. I
Yeah.
started in 90 two or three or something like that, and then I was there until the studio was shut down in
Right.
2000.
Mm,
Actually, if I might ask, because you talked about the politics, obviously, and
Yeah,
you kind of wanted to get away from all of that.
right.
You've mentioned in the past to me as well that you supervised as well, right?
Hmm.
So, how much of the politics did you feel affected you as a
As a
supervisor?
supervisor,
I mean, I've
mm,
been a supervisor and director as well, and we all know generally that when you're in those lead roles of any level, they're going to affect you in some way.
yeah,
So,
that's true. That's true. Well, they changed nature. Before you're a supervisor, the politics are about people trying to get to that middle management level or to get from whatever tier they're at to the next one.
mm-hmm.
Uh, as a supervisor, the politics are more interdepartmental.
right.
So everybody's looking to cover their butt and are can be quick to blame and point fingers,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm,
know, at another department if they can.
right.
But it really wasn't too bad in Florida,
That's
Okay.
honestly.
good.
It was much better than in LA. We had there was more respect, I think, and being a
Hmm.
smaller studio, there was at its height, the Florida studio had maybe 400 people,
Okay.
whereas LA, you know, it was probably 1,500 or so, 12 to
Right.
1,500, I'm guessing. There
I mean,
was,
correct me if I'm wrong, but the different, at least my experience supervising, is that you're just exposed to more of the politics than you would be as an artist on a team.
Mhm.
Like you're right, interdepartmental politics, but I feel like you also get you're included in emails or whatever conversations
Sure.
that might have higher tension in them that just don't filter down necessarily. Not that you'd want them to, but
Mhm.
I found that was a difference in politics a lot of
That's
the time.
probably more true in animation, I think, than it was for us. We were a small department. I think I
Hmm.
had maybe 10 or 11 artists under me
Hmm.
on Brother Bear and Pocahontas. And there were, I don't know if I want to call them politics. It was just people's have ambitions, and you have to then deal with those ambitions on a different level, because now you're the one making the decisions about who gets promoted and
Right.
so on. And, I had everyone in my department was so talented. They all deserve to be promoted. But you can't promote all of them.
Right.
So, yeah, it gets a little tricky, and I can't say that I handled it all that well. Like I wasn't. I tried to avoid those kinds of things as much as possible, but that might have been unfair too, because that means some people didn't get promoted as quickly as they probably deserved. So,
Right.
I could have been a more open as a supervisor, probably.
That's something that, as artists working in like a very commercial field, we don't necessarily build that skill set or have that kind of training.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of learn by making mistakes. That's not like the right way to do it, but I've always felt there's a lack of instruction in that area when you get
Absolutely
hired into those positions.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They management was only concerned about, oh, you've been here longer than so and so, so you're probably a better choice than they are. They didn't really, as far as I know, really look at your temperament or skill set in management. They didn't even run classes in it or courses in how to manage people.
Yeah, I think still a lot of studios today, like I know from the ones I've worked at here in Canada, mostly, there were never really any of these kind of training programs or management training programs until more recently. I did experience that at a couple of studios now, which is nice. Right. I think it's really important because it's not something that I think people don't really think about that as an artist. You're like, oh, I'm just going to go work it as an animator or a board artist or whatever. And when they're offered the chance to be in a lead role as a supervisor or whatever that role may be, you just assume you would just kind of get plugged into that role and things would just be kind of the same until you realize you have to manage and you have to do more tracking and communicate more across not just your department, but as you say, now with other departments.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's very true. One thing I would like to talk about, in case it doesn't come up in conversation, though, is about the skill set in storyboarding that I feel, at least in my experience, I always felt was a little bit lacking. And I kind of touched on it earlier when I was mentioning how a lot of the boards at Disney are done by ex-animators.
Right.
So I realized early on when I got to Disney that I was never going to be the level on the level as an artist with some of the people that I saw around me. So I decided that I was going to concentrate on the principles, the underlying principles of what makes film work, because those are not based on any particular subjective skill set, artistic skill set. So I got very interested in visual language, visual composition, and how best to manipulate a viewer's eye and that kind of thing. And we had a series of lectures from a guy named Bruce Block, who's a film instructor from UCLA. And he really went into depth about breaking down the elements of any image, moving and still. And so I really learned a lot from that and just kind of really applied myself into that. And I think that's what allowed me to do the workbooking, and which propelled me, acted as my foundation actually when I got into storyboarding. After the whole concept of workbooking kind of fell apart when CG came along, because you can't really workbook. It just doesn't. It just doesn't work when you're using a camera inside a CG environment to compose beforehand exactly what the image is going to look like.
Right. Yeah.
So workbooking kind of fell apart when 2D went by the wayside. But the other principles of visual language and that kind of thing, they all still have to apply because they're up there on the screen, whether you want them to be or not. As Bruce Block said, since they're up there on the screen, you might as well control those elements, or you can just let them go wild and do whatever they want to do on their own.
Yeah.
So I thought that's absolutely true. But I used that as my foundation when I went into storyboarding. And I felt that that was something that was not that common in storyboarding.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of storyboards where there were no backgrounds drawn in them at all, no thought as to how does this action work actually in an environment we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And why are we always getting these? Why are we never getting a close up when we need it, or a long shot when we need it? It's always like these medium shots over and over and over again.
Right.
And so I use that as the basis for how I approached storyboarding. Now, maybe my storyboards wouldn't be as, the characters might not be as expressive as an animator's, but I think they're probably more solid in the compositional sense than, I don't know, that almost sounds like bragging, but they have a
brag away.
Yeah.
Brag away. Yeah. But I always strove to get that in there because I thought that was more important. Who cares if the character's on model? Who cares if the character's super expressive when they're just it's not gonna end up in the film. The one thing that's going to end up on film is hopefully the composition you put together.
Yeah.
It works strong enough that somebody's going to go, no, that's what I want the shot to look like.
Yeah, even storyboards now, you see, they look almost fully animated sometimes. And
sometimes,
it does seem like, who's that for? I guess it's for the client who's approving things.
Seems to be mostly that way, Yeah, but I agree, Jeff. Like I find even today, like when I do look at a bunch of portfolios, I do find, I mean, there's a better sense of composition now. I think people are learning, and sometimes the younger artists are learning, I guess, vicariously through other people's work. They see these other films and they're starting to absorb a lot of that naturally. But I still see a lot of work that comes across my desk, my digital desk, I guess. And I do question at times, like, what is this composition meant to say to the audience?
Exactly.
Right? Because in that shot may be on screen for like a second and a half, maybe up to 3 seconds, perhaps. But it doesn't actually convey the message it's supposed to convey through a combination of all those compositional elements.
Exactly. So what the animators communicate story through action and speech and expression. We have to communicate the story through the camera angle, the composition, the framing of the shot, the tonal relationships, everything else that goes in to make up that image on screen,
right,
has to support the story in some sense. And the distance the camera is from the character, whether the characters are arranged symmetrically or asymmetrically, or and not just within that shot, but how it relates to the shots around it.
Right.
So those things are super, super important. And I would highly encourage anyone who's going into storyboarding to study those elements in great depth. You'll never master them. It's impossible, but be more familiar with them and more aware of them, and be able to recognize, oh, this is a spot where we need a close-up. I'll give you one small example. When I was on Mulan, and the villain, Shan Yu, is chasing Mulan through the palace near the end, and it's this big long chase scene, lots of wide shots, and then she breaks through onto the roof, and there's nowhere left to go, and Shan Yu comes bursting up through the roof, and in the storyboard it's still just long shots, and I'm thinking, no, this is the spot in the story where she's trapped, she's no longer anywhere to go, nowhere to run, and he's right there in her face. We need close-ups here,
right? Yeah,
to make the audience feel like they're in her shoes. And so that's what I did. And conversely, there's a shot earlier in the film when they go to this burned out village, and there's everyone there is dead,
Mm-hmm.
And the soldiers that were there to protect the village have been killed. And there's nothing but charred ruins. And one of the main characters, Shang, he discovers that his father was killed in that battle for the village. And so he walks off on his own. And in the storyboards, it just shows him from the back with his cape flowing, and he's big and central in the frame. And I thought, no, he looks too heroic. He's not feeling heroic in this moment. He is completely broken.
Mm-hmm.
So I recomposed the shot to make him very small. I pushed him way off into the lower corner, and he looks completely overwhelmed now by the world around him.
Right.
He's not adequate to take this on in this moment. And I think that sells the shot a lot better. But those are two examples of how doing these things. I'll give you another. Okay. I'll tell you about the shot that I'm probably the most proud of that I ever did at Disney. It's they're up in the mountains, Mulan, and they get attacked by the Huns. And they're trapped on these rocks near the edge of the cliff. The villain, Shan Yu, appears at the top of this rise, and he charges down the rise, and he's followed by his army. In the storyboards, the army was all shown in close-ups, going by a camera, and I'm thinking they're going to feel cheated. The audience is going to feel cheated. What we've got to sell the true scale of the danger here. So let's start off in a close-up on them, and then pull way, way, way back, and let's see 50,000 Huns pouring over this rise.
Yeah.
And I drew that out, and it caused a big huddle. The directors and the producers and whatever, and they're like, oh, getting this huddle, going back and forth about it. And they finally come out and say, okay, we'll do it.
Nice.
Because it was a very expensive shot to do.
Of course.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. And you've just added to the budget.
Oh, I did. Hugely. And it meant that the computer department had to be brought in on this too, because they're going to have to rubber stamp all these puns on horseback. And but that shot, here we go. I'm going to brag again. That shot actually got mentioned in an article. I think it was in Time magazine, calling it David Lean-esque.
Oh wow, amazing!
Oh.
Yeah. And the director told me that when he went to a public screening, he saw people gasping during that in the surrounding shots that were set up.
That must be the greatest feeling, like something you've done invokes some kind of emotional reaction from your audience, right? And I think that's what, if there's one takeaway, as you're leading us to the end of this discussion now, that, our audiences and the younger generations can kind of learn from and take away from this conversation is like invoking that emotion, telling a story with that emotion, with that intent, using your tools. And I don't think it's not even just for storyboard artists, for every artist, because
every artist, yes.
Yeah, because the landscape has changed so much. Independent filmmaking is big now, and it's very important for, I think, every artist in our industry, especially, to keep their minds open to independent filmmaking and take all these tools, whether you're a board artist, animator, designer, use all the tools you have to tell the greatest story you can ever tell.
Absolutely. One of the greatest training tools I would recommend to people is to study film noir. Once you take the color out, and you're left with all this stark tonal images that are high contrast and all designed to provoke an emotional reaction and mood and atmosphere. It's really quite brilliant, and it'll wake up your mind to that type of thinking that I've been going on about. Because anybody can learn it. For people who are dealing with imposter syndrome, I don't know if we'll have time to talk about that or not, but there'll always be artists out there who are better than yourself, no matter how good you are.
Right.
So just accept that. But the one thing you can do on their level is learning and using all of the tools of visual language to sell whatever it is you're trying to sell, whatever story you're trying to tell, you know. And they're what kept me moving forward at Disney when I was there. They're the reason I doing that was the reason I got to be a supervisor. It wasn't because I was a better artist than my crew. I wasn't necessarily, but I studied that stuff and I learned it, and that's what made the difference, I think, for me.
Yeah, all those shots that you mentioned, all three of them for me, the through line of that is thinking about the story you're telling on a very deep level, like
Yes.
taking every scene seriously, like what is this going to feel like, what, like really delving deep into the meaning of it. And that for me is also one of the biggest differences between television and film, is you have the time and you're encouraged and you should think on that level in features.
Yes.
Mhm.
And that's a skill you have to work on as well, because when I came from television to film, I was like, oh, this isn't a level of my creative field I've plumbed before. So it was like a new way of thinking, not just drawing, not just creating the art.
Not just drawing, yeah.
Yeah.
That's not the be all and end all. And you know, here's a good rule of thumb, especially if you're making an independent film, like you're saying, John. You should ask yourself, look at every single shot, and ask yourself, what story point is this shot selling?
Mhm.
What is how is the either character or story being progressed by this shot? And if you can't answer that, probably that shot shouldn't even be in the film.
Right. Yeah.
It's that simple. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what visual tools can I use to enhance telling that story point,
Mhm.
and make it more emotional for the audience?
Yeah. I think the visual language aspect definitely a bit of a lost art right now, but I think
Mm,
there's still a lot of resources available.
a
Like,
lot.
yeah, like I know for myself, having gone to Sheridan, we had John Wheeler
Hmm.
as our visual language teacher, and that kind of flew over most of our heads
It
as
did,
students.
yeah.
But eventually it did click. And I think, for anyone that may be interested, they can feel free to reach out to me, let's say, or anyone else, and, maybe ask some questions about that particular course, because I've compiled some of them into my storyboard workshop as well. But there's so many other resources, including, like, I think Scott McLeod, who does the um, comics. He does a lot of comic illustration, and he has books on visual language and comic books as well.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another good resource is our production designer on Mulan, Hans Bacher,
Mm,
is a terrific resource. He's got some books out that you can find on Amazon.
amazing.
He was a really strong visual compositional guy, and I learned a lot from him.
Hmm.
And I really studied a lot under him to try and get everything I could glean out of his images and his head as I could. Um, so yeah, there are resources out there. Bruce Block has a book out called The Visual Story, I think it's called, and I think you can get that on Amazon too.
Right.
I highly recommend that. And just studying, not just watching films, but studying them, like
Hmm.
watching the cuts and what the images are like between the cuts, because sometimes that cut says so much.
Yeah.
One of the starkest cuts in movie history is in Lawrence of Arabia.
I know this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know the one,
I
right?
know this one. Yeah.
Where yeah, he's just sitting in his military office or whatever, and he's got a lit match,
Yeah.
and it's a close up on the match burning, and his mouth blowing the match out. And as soon as the match blows out, you cut to the stark, empty, open desert.
Yeah.
And and it's the relationship between those two shots,
Hmm.
that sell it. Um, I mean, I could go on for a long time on this, so I'm not going to get uh, too bogged down in it. There's probably might be a couple of things we might have time for that we can talk
Yeah.
about.
Actually, we are kind of running near the end of our
Okay,
time. Maybe we can just ask you one more question.
sure.
So basically, Jeff, can you tell us, like, you've had a very notable and amazing career. You've worked on a lot of amazing projects, and obviously through this discussion, we've learned a lot about you and your journey through it. But is there a particular challenge or obstacle you ran into during your career that you'd like to share with our audience and kind of maybe provide a little bit of advice to as well?
Yeah, I'd say there were two. One is physical,
Hmm.
the physical repercussions of sitting hunched over a desk or a computer screen for decades.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're going to have some physical ramifications from that, almost guaranteed.
Hmm.
Uh, it will catch up with you. Just holding your arm up on a computer tablet for decades will cause shoulder problems, back problems, posture problems. I got frozen shoulder when I was in my 50s from that. An extremely painful condition. I don't recommend it to anyone.
Right.
And that came from holding my arm up on the computer screen. And that was only for about after about 5 years of doing that.
Mm.
So, and it's a silent, creeps up on you silently. So you feel great, and then one day you don't.
Right.
And it can take years to recover from it. It took me
Yeah.
about 2 to 3. Um, and just sitting for decades, it actually forced me into a retirement because I just couldn't sit for 8, 10 hours in a day anymore.
Hmm.
Doing boards. It was just too much pain. So I decided that my health was more important, and I decided I'm giving it up. Whether I ever return to it or not, I don't know. But for the until I get that under control, I'm not doing it anymore. The other one is the second one is
Oh,
what?
sorry. Just before you go
Yeah.
on to the second
Mhm.
one, very quickly for our audience, are there any? What remedies are you doing for
Keep
yourself
moving.
for that? Yeah.
Like literally, it's not enough to just working 8 hours a day and then going for a 20-minute walk isn't going
Right.
to make that much difference. You've got to keep moving throughout the day.
Yeah.
Like every hour or two, get up and move around for 10, 15 minutes. Even if that lengthens your day because you're not getting that time in doing more storyboard panels or whatever it is,
Yeah.
it's it doesn't matter because you're expected to work X number of hours a day now anyway. It's
Right.
not a 9 to 5 job anymore. So some of that time just needs for your own health. You've got to keep moving. And
Hmm.
specific exercises, everybody is different. So I can't give you specific
Right.
exercises. I'm not a physiotherapist. I'm not going to pretend to be.
Yeah. But
But
I
I
think
do know.
that's very important. Like the fact is, the human body is not designed to sit for that period of
No.
time. We're designed to move. We were designed to walk around and move around. So yeah, I think it's really important because I've gone through that myself.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily frozen shoulder, but a host of other injuries as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
And I've learned, like yourself, and obviously with hindsight being 2020, you can kind of think back and maybe you now can spot some signs, right? Like,
Right.
oh, my wrist felt a little weird. I didn't realize what it was, or
Right.
my butt muscles have atrophied because I was sitting for so
Yeah.
long.
I've got that.
Yeah, but yeah, I think a lot of it too is awareness. So just try to be aware of your own body. If something doesn't feel right, listen to that part of your body. Get out of the chair and move around
And
as frequently
right.
as possible.
The other thing related to that is not just your muscles and bones and so on,
Mhm.
but spending hours focused on something that's only maybe 8 to 12 inches from your eyes
Yeah.
is not good. You need to get up and focus on something far in the distance,
Hmm.
or you're going to need glasses much earlier in life,
Right. Yeah.
um, or even laser surgery or something like that.
Yeah.
So, for nothing else, for your eyesight,
Yeah.
we need
Yeah.
our eyesight as artists.
Yeah, I found that myself too because I've worn glasses since I started my
Uh,
career. So it happened very early on, and I probably
mm,
needed my glasses even earlier than that. But I do find like after working for too long in front of the Cintiq, I have to get up, move around. Sometimes even if I don't have a huge amount of time, I'll go to my front window and stare across the street.
even that,
Changes the distance of my
Yeah.
eyesight, right?
yep, even
And,
that
Yeah.
is
and Jeff,
enough.
have you come back to creating again? Like now that you're feeling more physically able?
I'm not. Well, I'm doing. I've done a little bit. I mean, I do creative stuff on my own for
Hmm.
myself. That's a whole nother discussion about retirement that I'm sure that your audience doesn't need to hear about now because they're not ready to retire.
We should talk about it
Well,
next time.
yeah,
Maybe,
we'll have you
in
back.
40
Yeah.
years, give me a call.
Do
Yeah.
part two.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
I think we're moving on to challenge number 2. You were 2 things you wanted to talk about. Yeah.
So challenge number 2 is imposter syndrome, and you know, you may have heard my advice on this before. Probably it's a pretty common answer, but it bears repeating. I mean, everybody gets imposter syndrome, and it's healthy. It's a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It might not feel very nice, but there are a few people who don't get it, and they're people who have already reached their peak and will never get better.
Mm-hmm.
I knew one artist who was extremely good, didn't have imposter syndrome, but never really grew as an artist beyond college.
Right.
Because he figured he knew it all already. He was good enough. And it kept him back. He would not enter into an environment where he would be forced to confront people who were much better than him. So I highly recommend, if you're suffering from imposter syndrome, embrace it, see it as an opportunity for growth. It's like, okay, I got to get out there and I've got to learn this and I've got to learn that and I've got to improve. And like I said earlier, there's always going to be somebody who's better, but you have to realize that they're just providing goals to strive for, and you can only get better as long as you're trying.
Right.
You can't get worse. So think of and I have to warn you too that imposter syndrome can get worse even with experience. The older you get, and the reason I try to explain it is, think of existing within a bubble, and everything inside that bubble is everything you know. Everything outside that bubble is everything you don't know. Now, as you get older in life and you start pulling in more things and that bubble starts to expand, that's great. But as the bubble expands, it also thins out. So now you can look out and you can see just how much you really still don't know. and it's daunting.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, that's my way of analogizing how the system works, because and then you add in the whole factor of technology and how it's progressing and how a younger generation is much generally more familiar and more easily comfortable with the newer tools than you are.
Yeah.
And it gets even more daunting. So, you know, just be aware that there's nothing, just having imposter syndrome does not mean that it's justified. It's a psychological thing and can definitely be used to your advantage.
Yeah, I think the artist ego, and an artist is built up of different facets, right? And that comes from the different experiences. And I think the imposter syndrome and the ego, those are facets on your entire diamond entity. And you kind of have to learn to live with it, but learn to grow, as you say, beyond it, because your bubble does grow and thin. And as you thin, you learn more about the world around you. And by doing that, you become better. Ultimately, you do become better. You learn more and you grow from that.
Because as that veil thins, it also becomes more porous. Like you're able to take in more and more and more. So it's kind of it's just a process that you have to learn to utilize and not let overwhelm you. You know, and it's hard these days when people are working inside their own homes. They're not part of a studio environment. You know, it's the demons work on the idle mind, right? So but there's, like I say, there's always going to be somebody out there who's better. So what?
Yeah, and you can learn from that person, right?
Yeah, they can't do everything.
Yeah, no one can do everything at all. Yeah, so I think we're at the end of our time for today. Great. So I just want to say, hey, thank you so much, Jeff, for being on our podcast.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Such an amazing discussion, and we really appreciated all the knowledge you brought in today and your your little anecdotes about Disney, all amazing and entertaining, of course. I definitely am looking forward to have you back for a part two, because there's tons to talk about, as always.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
happy to. Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
there's
I
always
feel like
something to talk about.
we only scratched the surface.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how deep you really want to go.
we can go. I mean, we can go pretty deep. I mean, with all of our guests, I think it's the fact that each of our guests is unique, and again, everyone has a different experience, and any part of that experience can be so beneficial to anyone in our audience, right?
Right. I hope
If
so.
it can bring a little bit of something to someone out there, then that would be gratifying, at least.
Well, if I hope they take anything away from this particular interview, I hope it would be to take my advice and study visual language and composition in film seriously.
Yeah. And I know, with our audience, you can't see anything with this podcast, but the couple of examples you mentioned from Mulan, especially, I remember seeing those in your workbook when you did bring it in, and I was amazed by that too.
Mulan was something special to me.
Yeah,
it really was. It was the peak of my time at Disney. So just for the fact that I got to do more on that film, have more input on that film than any other one. So that the one's kind of special to me.
And I hope, like, for our audience members, again, like, I hope everyone in their career has at least one moment like that. I mean, you will have to work for it, obviously, and you will have to try to find that opportunity, but keep your eyes open. And when you have a moment like that, you can cherish it. And, like Jeff did today, you can share it with everybody else, and allow that to help grow other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we have to wrap it up, but really great conversation. Thanks so much, Jeff.
You're very welcome.
All right. Thank you again, Jeff. And thank you to our audience members for listening. We'll catch you on the next one. The ACC podcast is created and hosted by Katherine MacDonald and John Lee. Music by Mike Romaniak, mixing and editing by Kathy MacDonald, and produced by Katherine Kim.